Today we are doing a deep dive into one of history's most persistent questions, really. By what authority are you doing these things?
It's a question that just echoes, doesn't it?
It really does, and it's central to our sources today. We're going to be exploring the dynamics of truth, specifically, who gets to speak it, why people resist it, and what happens when fear, really, the fear of losing status, just overrides wisdom.
It's a fascinating collection of texts for this. They span such different eras and contexts, but they're all tied together by this theme of spiritual posture.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
We have the ancient prophecy of Balaam from Numbers 24, a really high-stakes confrontation in Matthew 21, and then the foundational guidance from the Psalms 25, 85, and 111, which kind of lay out the prerequisites for all of it.
So we have a prophecy from a foreign seer on one hand, and then this moment of intense, almost political maneuvering in the temple courts. They seem so different.
They do.
What's the mission here? How do these all connect for you, the listener?
Well, the documents are guiding us to see that recognizing truth, real profound truth, requires a certain internal position, an openness.
An openness that's often blocked.
Completely blocked by attachment to rank, to position, to what other people think. So we're basically comparing a moment where truth arrived and was received versus a moment where it arrived and was just completely rejected out of self-preservation.
Okay, so let's start with that first one, with the revelation, the story of Balaam's oracle from Numbers 24.
Right.
And Balaam is not an Israelite. He's actually been called in to pronounce a curse, but something else happens.
The spirit just takes over.
It does. The text says he raises his eyes, sees Israel encamped tribe by tribe, and boom, the Spirit of God came upon him.
And what's amazing is how the writer goes to these incredible lengths to build up Balaam's prophetic credibility right in this moment.
Even though he's an outsider.
Especially because he's an outsider. They don't just say he spoke, they define how he sees.
They absolutely do. He's identified as the son of viewer, but then immediately by his state of being, he is the man whose eye is true. The one who hears what God says and knows what the Most High knows. And this part is crucial. He's described as enraptured and with eyes unveiled.
That phrase, eyes unveiled, that's everything, isn't it? It signifies this profound clarity that's just not burdened by self-interest or prejudice.
Or by the agenda of the king who hired him.
Exactly. He is literally seeing without a filter.
And what he sees at first is this vision of just stunning prosperity for Israel. He uses these beautiful, lush metaphors.
Yeah, the language is incredible.
He says their encampments are goodly. They're like gardens beside a stream and like the cedars planted by the Lord. It's an image of pure flourishing.
Of abundance, of longevity, a real sense of peace.
But then the oracle pivots.
It does. It goes from the immediate to the eternal, really.
Having established their stability now, Balaam delivers the prophecy that would just echo through history, this future messianic vision.
This is where it expands dramatically. It moves beyond geography and into destiny.
He declares that Israel's king shall rise higher, and his royalty shall be exalted. And then comes the line, the one that everyone remembers.
A star.
The star. I see him, though not now. I behold him, though not near. A star shall advance from Jacob, and a staff shall rise from Israel.
The deeper insight here, I think, is that the authority to speak divine truth is completely, it's independent of the usual religious channels.
He's a hired gun, a pagan seer.
Right. And yet his vision is the one recorded as true because the Spirit was on him. The text is making a really stunning point here.
Which is?
That Revelation sometimes bypasses the establishment. It chooses these unexpected, maybe even marginal conduits.
Because they're less cluttered.
Precisely. They're less encumbered by the politics and the self-interest of the established religious order.
So the source is arguing that Balaam's state of being, his receptivity, his unveiled eyes, that was the true measure of his authority, not his resume.
Not his position at all.
Do you think the text is intentionally using an outsider to suggest that the established prophets of the time might have been a bit spiritually blind?
Oh, that's absolutely the inference. By having the most powerful prophecy come from this non-traditional, financially motivated guy, it throws some serious shade on the institutional leaders who thought that was their job.
It suggests entitlement is the blindfold.
Entitlement itself is the first great veil over the eyes.
That dynamic, entitlement versus true insight, is the perfect bridge to our next set of sources. Because now we move to a scenario where the established authority fights back. Hard. Let's shift to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21.
Okay.
Jesus is teaching in the temple area, and he's confronted by the chief priests and the elders. I mean, the absolute pillars of the religious structure.
And they don't mess around. They don't ask about his theology or his message.
No, it's a direct attack on his credentials.
Purely administrative. The demand is, by what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?
It's a trap, a calculated hierarchical challenge.
And Jesus just turns the tables on them masterfully. He knows they aren't actually seeking an answer.
So he gives them a counter question, a brilliant one.
He says, I'll ask you one question. You answer me and I'll answer you. And the question is, where was John's baptism from? Was it of heavenly or of human origin?
And this is where the narrative gives us this amazing, almost theatrical look behind the curtain.
Yes, we get to hear their private, panicked conversation. The source gives us their inner dialogue.
We hear them calculating, running the scenarios. If they say John's baptism was from heavenly origin, what happens?
Jesus will immediately ask, then why didn't you believe him? Which exposes their hypocrisy.
Right. But if they say of human origin,
They're afraid of the crowd, a riot even, because everyone there, all the people in the temple, regarded John as a prophet.
so their entire deliberation has nothing to do with truth.
Nothing. It is pure political risk management.
How do we minimize the damage to our reputation?
How do we maintain control? They're afraid of losing face with Jesus, but they're absolutely terrified of losing credibility with the people.
And this just underscores a central truth of the whole exchange, doesn't it? The leaders' only concern was preserving their authority.
Not finding truth.
We see this today all the time. The CEO who won't admit a costly error, the politician who can't walk back a false statement. The calculus is identical.
It's position over principle every single time. Their inability to answer was just rooted in fear of what an honest reply would cost them.
So because of this fear, they land on the only politically safe but totally useless answer they can.
We do not know.
And Jesus shuts it down. He says, if you won't answer my question, I won't answer yours. And that's it. The discussion's over.
But they've been exposed. And this gives us our first big insight from this deep dive. The very people who were supposed to be the gatekeepers of truth were silenced.
Because they valued their comfort more than the truth itself.
They closed their own eyes because their hearts were full of fear. It's the complete opposite of Balaam's unveiled sight.
Okay, so this brings us to the third part of our source material. What's the fundamental link between Balaam's unveiled sight and the priest's deliberate blindness?
Right.
The sources seem to argue that authority is only granted to those who adopt a posture of humility.
And the Psalms provide the roadmap for that. They detail the exact spiritual attitude needed to receive what Balaam saw and what the chief priests rejected.
Psalm 25, it's basically a prayer for the sincere seeker, for someone who admits they need to be taught.
And you see that desire for guidance over and over. Teach me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths.
It's an admission that you don't already have the map.
Exactly. And the text connects that sincerity directly to the outcome. He guides the humble to justice. He teaches the humble his way.
So the guidance is reserved for a very specific kind of student.
It is. The text clarifies that divine instruction isn't, guaranteed by your intellect or your position. It's a gift for the humble.
And the Alleluia verse from Psalm 85 drives this home. It's just a simple, earnest plea. Show us, Lord, your love and grant us your salvation.
It's a plea for clarity that requires you to first admit you don't have it.
Which is precisely what the chief priests couldn't do. They couldn't say, we don't know, out of a genuine desire to learn, only out of fear.
They could never pray, teach me your ways.
And this whole attitude of openness is formally defined for us in the wisdom literature in Psalm 111.
Psalm 111 gives us that famous nugget. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who practice it gain good understanding.
And it's so important to define that fear. It's not terror.
No, it's reverence. It's awe, a deep respect for something much, much greater than yourself.
And that reverence naturally leads to humility. When you understand the magnitude of divine truth, your own ego just has to shrink.
So good understanding, the text is saying, is basically impossible for the proud.
The reflection analysis we have really ties all these threads together into one cohesive argument. It states that Jesus exposed how pride and fear can prevent people from recognizing God's truth. It calls the leaders' issue having closed hearts, lacking honest self-examination.
A pretty direct diagnosis.
The ultimate synthesis is really clear. Faith requires humility and openness, not just knowledge or position.
So the difference between the chief priests and Balaam really just comes down to sincerity.
That's simple.
Balaam's eyes were unveiled because his heart was receptive, even as an outsider. The chief priest's sight was totally clouded because their hearts were fixated on their own pride, their reputation.
It's a powerful statement that only the teachable, the humble, can actually see the truth when it shows up.
And this is a really critical insight for you, the listener. If true wisdom comes when we sincerely seek truth rather than protecting our own image, you have to ask yourself,
where are we acting like the chief priests?
Yeah, exactly. Where are we choosing to protect our image over honest seeking?
I mean, if you make a big mistake at work and you spend all your energy on damage control, on spinning the narrative,
you're adopting their posture. You're prioritizing your reputation over actually fixing the problem.
The humble posture, the one that leads to wisdom, would be to just admit the error, learn from it, and embrace the discomfort that comes with that kind of honesty.
So that brings us to our final summary of this deep dive. We found really 3 core takeaways from this collection of texts.
First, that prophecy and real insight are not bound by institutions. True knowledge can, and often does, come from unexpected sources.
From an outsider like Balaam, as long as they are receptive.
Second, that challenging someone's authority, like we saw in Matthew 21, often reveals way more about the challenger's own motives, their pride, their fear, than it does about the person being challenged.
Good point. And third, the sources all agree that humility isn't just a nice virtue, it's the absolute prerequisite for wisdom.
If you're afraid to admit you don't know, you're essentially sealing your own eyes shut.
The reflection source gives you a really practical application to think about. It asks directly, what area of your life do you need to approach today with greater humility and honesty?
It challenges us to seek truth sincerely and have the courage to actually follow it.
And as a final provocative thought for you to take away, think about Balaam's ultimate vision. He saw a star rising from Jacob. To recognize a star, something new and brilliant that's breaking the established pattern of the heavens, you first have to be willing to look up. You have to admit that your current map of reality might be incomplete.
The ability to see truth is tied to your willingness to surrender control.
Exactly. If you hold on to that control too tightly, you will absolutely miss the star.